For the moment, the most prominent players on the stage are four: Humphrey, Reagan, Ford, and his ventriloquist Rockefeller. Hubert Humphrey wears a big label that reads Liberal Democrat, while the equally large label on Ronald Reagan reads Conservative Republican. President Ford's label is a large question mark. Nelson Rockefeller's label, which by the way is made of solid gold, is rather large. It reads Liberal New Deal Democrat turned instant Conservative Republican, unquote. It looks like quite a field, doesn't it? But it so happens that Nelson Rockefeller has the other three in the palm of his hand, and his own label is only for show. Hubert Humphrey is currently the beneficiary of the so-called Humphrey phenomenon, an undeclared candidacy that is being made to look impressive by the Rockefeller major media and by polls which can easily be manipulated. Humphrey's well-concealed control of a huge major multinational oil company for over 20 years has been very helpful to his Rockefeller supporters behind the scenes. Partly for this reason, a possible multi-million-dollar tax case against him by the Internal Revenue Service has been covered up under presidential seal, and the IRS FBI agents who worked on the case are no longer around. Ronald Reagan, of course, is the polished actor who has been rehearsing so-called conservative lines ever since 1950. That was the year when, during congressional hearings, he officially admitted his previously ultra-liberal activities, but claimed that he had seen the light and was turning over a new leaf. Yet his actions, as sharply distinguished from his words, have never really changed. He has maintained many active ties with Rockefeller-dominated organizations, such as their complex of governmental control groups known collectively as 1313 in Chicago. The Reagan administration in California was heavily populated with people from the Rockefeller stables, and the Reagan record in California parallels that of Rockefeller in New York in many ways. But Reagan has consistently spoken as if his views and policies were totally opposite to those of Rockefeller. Reagan's service on Rockefeller's CIA cover-up commission earlier this year, therefore, helped to quiet the cover-up fears of some who are not aware of Reagan's strong Rockefeller ties. President Ford is where he is because the then President Nixon double-crossed his boss, Nelson Rockefeller. When Agnew was forced to resign, Nixon was supposed to nominate Rockefeller, but Nixon could see where that would lead. So instead he selected Gerald Ford, whose political star had risen considerably after his participation in the work and defense of the Warren Commission. Good old Jerry was well known and well liked by his colleagues, yet his confirmation hearings bogged down unexpectedly. Behind the scenes, Nelson Rockefeller applied the brakes until Ford agreed to nominate him, Rockefeller, upon Nixon's departure from the presidency. Once the agreement was reached, Ford's confirmation hearings rapidly concluded favorably, and Nelson Rockefeller immediately resigned as governor of New York, surreptitiously moved into his Washington, D.C. residence, and personally finished Watergating Nixon out of the White House. Nelson was so proud of his success in this project that he wrote to a banker friend in Mexico afterward to tell him all about it. Can you imagine? Thus Rockefeller control denies us any real choice in national politics. Ultimately, the Rockefellers choose all the presidential candidates that count, and have ever since Woodrow Wilson's time. We, the voters, are then given the useless privilege of choosing which of their hand-picked puppets we want, just like they do in Soviet Russia. Even in the election itself, The deck is stacked in favor of their preferred choice, but just in case, they control the other side too. If this isn't taxation without representation, I don't know what it is. In Congress, too, most of our politicians end up in the Rockefeller pocket one way or another. Some deliberately throw in their lot with the Rockefellers and become active Rockefeller agents. Others become compromised by skeletons in their closets and are pawns in the Rockefeller game of blackmail and double-cross here in Washington. And still others just go along to get along, not rocking the boat. And so when government abuses become so flagrant that they are detected, we are still left without recourse, because the Rockefellers control the investigations in almost every case. As I speak to you, the ante has gone up due to the leakage of radioactive plutonium-239 super poison from the bullion depository at Fort Knox, and the government is doing nothing whatsoever to stop it. My previous information was that the region which has been primarily affected by the leakage over the past several years consists of a swath through Kentucky, my home state of West Virginia, and Virginia, with a combined population of over 9 million people. But on November 8, 1975, a secret meeting was held in the White House to discuss alternative means of disposing of the deadly poison. The discussion included some ideas that would be as insane as the poison itself, such as dumping all 60 pounds of it into the underground streams that lie under Fort Knox. Not only might this allow the poison to spread uncontrollably from there, but it could possibly also cause contamination of any of the huge underground caverns under Fort Knox, which are used for natural gas storage. Now, if this were to happen, natural gas could carry traces of the radioactive plutonium poison straight into the industrial plants and homes of thousands of people in that area. The deadly plutonium radiation would be unaffected by passing through gas flames, after which it could be inhaled or set on to food. I have received no further information concerning the action, if any, taken after the November 8 White House meeting, but I have received updated information to the effect that the poison is now spreading throughout the entire southeast of the United States and even beginning to enter the Gulf of Mexico. 36 million Americans are now at stake. And what is our government doing about it? Nothing. The White House meeting had only one purpose: to save face for the wrongdoers, not to save 36 million lives. And what about Congress and all those investigations we keep hearing about? Consider Senator Frank Church, who is our newest presidential candidate. On November 20, 1975, he explained the release of his committee's report about assassination plots on foreign leaders with the words, and I quote, "The people were entitled to know what went wrong and why," unquote. But when it comes to an immediate, deadly danger to all of us, caused by the same elements of the intelligence community, apparently Senator Church believes we are not entitled to know, since he has been covering up this vital information now for 4 months, while the situation grows steadily worse. And for over 2 months, the same has been true of his counterpart in the House, Congressman Otis Pike. Meanwhile, what else is happening in the executive branch, specifically the Treasury Department? My friend, I believe it is time to let you in on an example of the evasions, half-truths, and distortions which Rockefeller bureaucrats use to cover their tracks. I call it a lesson in bureaucratic gobbledygook, the slippery language that some people also call double talk. For over 3 months now, all of our attempts even to communicate directly with the government about the twin disasters at Fort Knox have met with nothing but a very loud silence. Having deepened and confirmed their own guilt time and again through various slips in the past, they apparently no longer have the courage or the courtesy even to answer us. Through an indirect channel, however, we were able to extract a letter from Mrs. Mary Brooks, the Director of the Mint, dated November 21, 1975. This indirect channel is Congressman Kenneth Robinson of Virginia, who, while he does not choose to pursue the Fort Knox matter on his own, has at least cooperated with us in ways such as this. In this regard, he is exceptional. No one else in the entire United States Congress has done even this much. As I read the letter, try if you can to find any clear-cut yes or no type answer to anything. You will only find one, to the effect that a certain statement, and I quote, is simply not true, unquote. But the statement referred to is not our statement, but a carefully selected misstatement of our charges by someone else. Now here's the letter. Dear Mr. Robinson, thank you for your letter of November 10, 1975, concerning allegations that plutonium-239 was stored in the so-called Central Core Vault at the United States Bullion Depository, Fort Knox, Kentucky. We do not store plutonium-239 or any other radioactive substance at the depository and have no reason to believe that it is stored there by other government agencies. We authorized the military at Fort Knox to make radiation tests in the depository last week. We were informed that the tests did not disclose any evidence of radioactive material. The allegations relating to the so-called Central Core Vault are carried in a Swiss newsletter entitled Myers Finance and Energy that is currently being circulated by those who are persistent with all the wild allegations about the bullion depository at Fort Knox. The newsletter discusses Dr. Peter D. Beater's allegations and states, and the letter quotes as follows, in 1942-43, Major Stanley Tatum, T-A-T-O-M, designed and oversaw the construction of a Central Core Vault below the main vault. To get to this ultra-safe vault, an elevator had to be installed, and it used up the space occupied by 12 of the former vault compartments. This explains why the numbering in the vault compartments upstairs had a 12-digit gap, unquote. And Mrs. Brooks' letter continues, and I quote, "This statement is simply not true. There were no major alterations to the vault after construction of the depository was completed in 1936. The elevator was installed at the time the depository was constructed. We have no record of Major Stanley Tatum, T-A-T-O-M, designing or overseeing the construction of a Central Core Vault. In fact, we do not, and find no record that we ever did, refer to any part of the depository by that name. The visitor's log at the depository does show the name of Major Daniel F. Tatum, T-A-T-U-M, as coined on the